share. Okay, all right. So do you see last time the title of the slide at your end?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right. So last time we began with our analysis of nth order linear differential operators, right, with constant coefficients. So we thought we will stick to the operator notation, and the way to solve these equations is to look at the associated characteristic polynomial. So if L is the nth order linear differential operator with constant coefficients as illustrated here on the slide, then we denoted the associated characteristic polynomial by PL, correct? P subscript L. Yeah. So last time we discussed the case, what happens when P, the characteristic polynomial, admits distinct real roots, and what if the characteristic polynomial has some repeated roots, right? Today we are going to first discuss the case, what happens if the characteristic polynomial also has some complex roots, right? Okay, all right. So I think, I hope everybody is with me up till this point. Uh, let's uh, let's see. Yeah. So before we look at the complex root case, let's run through this proposition. What is the statement? So suppose I have n non-zero polynomials q1, q2, qn, and suppose that r1, r2, rn are n distinct real numbers. Then the proposition claims that q1 exponential r1x, q2 exponential r2x, and qn exponential rnx, this is a linearly independent set. All right. Yes. So this is rather useful, as we will see in a minute. But so how would you prove such a statement? I have sort of left the proof for you to work on, but here is a hint. You use appeal to the principle of mathematical induction on the index n, right? So you say that verify that the statement is true for n equal to 1, assume the statement to be true for stage n minus 1, and using that induction hypothesis, try to prove that the same statement holds for n, and that would show that this is indeed true for all n, right? So can I leave this proof for you to try on? Of course, if there are
Yes,
questions,
ma'am. Sure.
yeah, yeah, is that
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
Yeah, okay, all right. So, but I hope the statement is okay with everybody, right? You have some non-zero
Yes.
polynomials and distinct real numbers, R1, R2, Rn. Okay, all right. So using this proposition, this actually falls out as a corollary of the previous propositions. Now, what are we doing? We are looking at these functions. So there's u subscript pq. Yeah. So let's see what is happening here. So these are defined as x to the power q minus 1 exponential rpx. Yeah. Okay. So p is running from 1 to k and q is running from 1 to mp, right? And r1, r2, rk are distinct real numbers, right? So I have r1, r2, rk distinct real numbers. I'm taking their exponentials and multiplying it with some polynomial, actually monomial, right? x1, x2, xmp minus 1, right? And so this is how you get UPQ. And so I want to make sure there are n of them. So I ensure this by putting this condition. Yeah, m1, m2, mk are positive integers such that their sum is n. The claim is that these n functions are linearly independent. Okay. So suppose not. Suppose that there are constants CPQ such that the summation of CPQ UPQ is equal to 0. So the summation runs from over PQ. Yeah. So P runs from 1 to K and Q runs from 1 to MP. Yeah. So what is it? What is that we are required to show in order to so the proposition says that these functions are linearly independent. We are required to show that CPQ is 0 for all P and all Q. correct? Is that okay? Is everybody with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. All right. So let's see how does one do that? Yeah. So I've just rewritten the last thing again on this slide. Now these are finite sums, right? So what am I? So that enables us to write the following. Yeah. So remember, what is UPQ? UPQ was x to power q minus 1 exponential RPX. Now I am going to put this parenthesis, which involves terms summing over the index q, right? Now and nothing changes because this is a finite sum, right? Now I say that from the second equation on this slide, it is immediate that whatever is in the parenthesis must be 0. So what is the how does this follow?
Ma'am, because e to the power RPX is never 0.
Okay, all right, so then what happens? But I'm
So
taking a sum, right? I'm taking a sum from p equal to 1 to k.
we can claim that this summation inside the parenthesis to be some capital A, and so we are having summation of A into e power RPX is 0.
Correct, correct.
RPX are all independent, so each of the coefficient should be 0. So each of the A's should be 0.
See, but these a's are functions of x. Had a's been just scalars, then you can use whatever you are saying, right? Right, linear
Yeah.
independence of the exponential functions when rp's, r1 r2, these are all distinct. R1 R2 RK are distinct, it will fall through. But as you said, this a is a function of x here, a of x here, so one cannot directly appeal to the linear independent, meaning it will not directly follow from the linear independence of the exponential function alone, correct? Do you follow this point?
Yeah, but we discussed that proposition just in the start of the class that
Correct. So we are using that proposition. Yeah. So a is a function of x. So you're not using just that, the fact that, so I'm using this proposition here, right? So I'm saying that a here, so instead of a, let's call it q. Q1s, these are all functions of x and they better be linearly independent. So that means that the only choice is that whatever is in the parenthesis, all of that is 0, correct? Is that okay? And once we have this, then one uses the linear independence of 1x x to power mp minus 1 to show that each of these coefficients cpq must be 0 for all choices of p and q. Is that okay?
yeah,
Yes. Okay. So having done this is sort of, so we have a certain linearly independent set of functions, right? That's what this proposition says. Okay. All right. So let's see, let's come back to the world of differential equations and let's solve a differential equation. Yeah. So I have a homogeneous differential equation, d6 plus 2d5 plus minus 2d3 minus d2 applied to y is equal to 0. Yeah, I have to solve for all y satisfying this differential equation. So how would we do this? We would look at the associated characteristic polynomial, correct? Which in this case is a degree 6 polynomial, x to the power 6 plus 2x to power 5 minus 2x cube minus x square, right? So x square is a factor, so that leaves us with a degree 4 polynomial. And by inspection you can figure out that 1 is a root. Once you do that, then it is simple, right? So so what are the roots of the characteristic polynomial here? 0 with multiplicity 2, 1, and minus 1 with multiplicity is 3. So having factorized this characteristic polynomial, one can write down the linear operator L as d squared d minus 1 times d plus 1 cube, correct? And we talked about it last time. We would look at the null space of d square, the null space of d minus 1, and the null space of the operator d plus 1 cube, correct? So,
Right.
right, and we will look at the basis of each of these, right? So what is, so can you give me basis of solution space of the operator d square? So which
1 and x.
1 and x, right? Which means two
Yes.
linearly independent solutions of the equation d square y equal to 0, right? So that is 1 and x. Likewise, I should be able to write down one linear independent, meaning non-zero solution of the equation d minus 1 y equal to 0, right? And what is that?
E raised to x.
E to the x, right? So every solution of the operator d minus 1 y equal to 0 is in the linear span of e to power x. Excellent. And what is the what is the basis of the null space of d plus 1 cube?
E raised to minus x e raised to minus x square e raised to minus x.
Correct. So this is e to power minus x, and every other solution must be in a linear span of this, right? Because the dimension is 3 and we have found 3 linearly independent vectors. Okay,
Correct.
great. Now, having found this, now what is that we could do? We should do it. We have to look at the solutions of this order 6 linear operator, right? So ideally, one would look at solution set, 1x e to power x, e to power minus x e to power minus x square e to power minus x. If so, each of these are actually solutions to the given order 6 differential equation. The next thing to check is that these are actually linearly independent, correct? And hence, the general solution of the given differential equation is going to be linear combination of these 6 solutions, correct? Is that okay?
Is it necessary that they will always be linearly independent?
They may not be. That's why you're required to check, right? And we just proved this proposition, right?
Yes.
Yes. So now we are fine.
Ma'am,
Yes, yes.
ma'am,
Please.
instead of kernel of d square, that came out to be 1 comma x, we might have any constant instead of 1, right?
Yes,
No, so
yes.
constant times 1, right? That is why C1 is there.
Okay.
This is just a basis, right? The choice of basis is not unique, right?
Yes, got it.
Yes. Right? Is that okay? All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So let's look at the case where the characteristic polynomial has some complex roots. So remember, what did we do when we were dealing with order 2 equations? We said that in that case, the characteristic polynomial has exactly 2 roots, and those had to be complex conjugates of each other. So we got a basis of the solution space as e to power ax cosine bx and e to power ax sine bx if a plus iota b and a minus iota b were the roots of the characteristic polynomial. Now, if in the current case, we have a degree n polynomial, right? And if this polynomial has a complex root a plus iota b, then it will also have the complex conjugate of it as also at the root, right? Okay, which means that x minus a plus iota b times x minus a minus iota b, which is the same as x square minus 2ax plus a square plus b square, is indeed a factor of the characteristic polynomial PL, correct? Which means that this is exactly saying that if you were to factorize the linear operator L, then d square minus 2ad plus a square plus b square is a factor of the linear operator L, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So now we should look at the null space of the operator d square minus 2ad plus a square plus b square, right? Now,
Right.
can you give me 2 linearly independent solutions of the equation d square minus 2ad plus a square plus b square, acting on y equal to 0? We should be able to find this basis, right? This is an order 2 equation now.
E raised to x cos bx and e raised to x sin bx.
Exactly what is upstairs, right? So the null space of the operator d square minus 2ad plus a square plus b square has a basis given as exponential ax cosine bx, exponential ax sine bx, right? So what does this suggest? It suggests that if a plus minus iota b is a root of the characteristic polynomial of multiplicity m, then one should look at the following operator d square minus 2ad plus a square plus b square, all of it to the power m, and the corresponding null space, correct? Right?
Yeah.
And we should look at the basis of solution space for this operator, for the solution space of this operator. And what is that going to be? That's going to be exponential ax cosine bx, x times exponential ax cosine bx, all the way till x to power m minus 1 exponential ax cosine bx. And likewise, there will be terms of the form exponential ax sine bx, right? So these are how many are these? How many functions are there? 2m,
2m.
right? So we have 2m functions. What is that you need to check? You need to check
Generally independent.
they are linearly independent, right? All of them are in the solution space. Absolutely no doubts about that. Please check that these are linearly independent. These 2m functions are actually linearly independent. That is something I will leave for you to check.
Right.
Yeah, is that okay? Everybody with me up till
Yes,
this
ma'am.
point? Yes? Okay, all right.
Yes,
Ma'am,
ma'am.
also, in one of the previous slides, like the example one, where we had written C1 plus C2x plus C3 raised to x, we had
Yes.
written Ci need to be real, but why is that there?
Because
can't-
we are in the real world. We are, our universal space is R. That's all.
Right.
That's
So,
all.
but in these cases, in the below complex
Complex
root, then sometimes the constants have to be like above when we come up to ax cos bx plus ax sin bx e raised to. Don't we say that the constants are complex?
No. Over here also the complex are constants are real. That's why we don't have these iota terms. It's just a choice. Even if you put a
Okay.
complex constants, they will still be the solutions, but that's not what we
Right.
are considering. We are just
Okay.
working in the universal space R. That's all. That's
Got
all.
it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's look at an example. So I have a linear operator of order 5 here, right? Okay, and the question is to find the general solution of this homogeneous order 5 linear equation. Okay, so let's write down the associated characteristic polynomial. So that is, so there's a factorization here available. X minus 1 times x square minus 4x plus 5 square, right? So, anytime you have a degree 5 polynomial, you have to find one root by inspection so that you get, to a degree 4 polynomial that perhaps is degree 4 or degree 3 is more tractable, right? Okay, so having factorized this characteristic polynomial, one can readily read the roots, which are 1 and 2 plus minus iota, correct? Is that correct? Right? And this root 2 plus minus iota has multiplicity 2, correct? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes. So what would be the general solution in this case?
E raised to C1 e raised to x.
Yes. So you have e to x corresponding to the operator d minus 1. And then you have some roots,
Raised to
right?
2x cos x and e raised to 2x sin x, and then x e raised to 2x sin
Correct.
x and e raised to.
Right, you have to account for the multiplicity. Yeah. So exponential x comes from the kernel of the operator d minus 1. Exponential 2x cosine x comes from the kernel of this operator d square minus 4d plus 5, and that's a root with multiplicity 2, so you have a x times that, and same is the case for exponential 2x sine x times exponential 2x sine x, right? So if you had done the previous exercise, which is left as an exercise for you, and all of these are linearly independent, then you're done, that this is the general solution of the given differential equation. Correct? Is that okay?
Ma'am,
I think there's a slight error in the slide. I'm not
Okay.
like
All
it would
right.
be C4 e to the power x sine 2x and C5 e to the so there is okay, my bad.
It's fine.
I
No,
missed that. Yeah.
it's a 2 plus iota, so I will have a 2 here.
Yeah, you'll
and
have 2
1.
up. Yeah, and there will be I didn't see the x that is multiplied. My bad.
Yeah, is that okay? All right. Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes.
you always are emphasizing that we need to check whether these are linearly independent or not, the solutions that we are getting. So ma'am, how do we check them exactly? By the Wronskian?
Yes.
Yes, if you have found the solutions, you can use the Wronskian.
Okay.
Yeah, once you've checked that these are the solutions, then you can use the Wronskian. That is one way, or you just use the definition. See, meaning all I'm trying to say is I skipped this exercise, right? I did not do this here. This is something for you to do. So once you've checked this, then all of this is sort of a corollary. Is that okay?
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, okay, ma'am. Because I mean, it looked pretty trivial. That's why I was just asking.
It looks pretty trivial once you do it. Once in lifetime you should do this. Sit with a pen and paper and do this.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I want each one of you to do. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So, we would now look at non-homogeneous nth order differential equations. And let's quickly recall what did we do for non-homogeneous second order differential equation. So if you had a non-homogeneous differential equation as illustrated in 1 in standard format, so this is a non-homogeneous second order linear differential equation in standard format with the coefficients p, q, r assumed to be continuous on some interval I on the real line, right? What did we do? We looked at any particular solution on the non-homogeneous differential equation, and we looked at the basis of the solution space of the corresponding homogeneous differential equation, right? And then we proved this theorem that the solution space of the non-homogeneous differential equation is actually given as C1y1 plus C2y2 plus some particular solution of the non-homogeneous differential equation, correct? Yes, is that okay? Everybody remembers this, right? So in order to solve the non-homogeneous differential equation, you need to find one particular solution of the non-homogeneous differential equation, and you need to find the basis of the solution space of the associated homogeneous differential equation. Yeah, it's exactly the same when you look at nth order non-homogeneous differential equations. So let's see. So suppose that you have an nth order non-homogeneous differential equation. This is linear in standard format. All the coefficients P1, P2, P and R are assumed to be continuous on certain interval I in R, right? And once you are able to find one particular solution of the non-homogeneous differential equation, and you are able to find the basis of solution space of the corresponding homogeneous differential equation, see exactly the same proof which we did for nth order 2 equations will tell you that the solution space of the non-homogeneous differential equation is given as C1y1 plus C2y2 all the way till Cny1 plus a particular solution of the non-homogeneous differential equation. Yeah, so I will leave this proof for you to check because it's exactly the same as what we did in order 2.
Is it the one where we take another phi and then we show phi minus f is 0, so it will always be a homogeneous solution?
Right. Yeah. So you, yeah, right. You may choose to look, sort of call it phi and right. So it's exactly the same. So exactly the same argument will work here as well, right? So the upshot of all of this discussion is that you need to find a particular solution of the non-homogeneous differential equation and the basis of the solution space of the associated homogeneous differential equation. Now the question is, how do you find a particular solution of the non-homogeneous differential equation, which is an order n equation, right? So we discussed two methods in order 2 situations, which were the method of undetermined coefficients and the method of variation of parameters, right? So both of them remain valid in order n situation also. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. So remember, so method of undetermined coefficients is rather restrictive. It applies only when the associated homogeneous differential equation has constant coefficients and the forcing function on the right is either exponential, sines, cosines, or polynomials, or a combination of these, right? But whenever it applies, it's quite easy in some sense. Okay, so let's look at an order 4 equation and try to solve this non-homogeneous differential equation. Okay, so let's look at the homogeneous equation first. So which is in this case, what is the homogeneous equation? D4 plus t square plus y equals 0, right? Okay, so which means that the associated characteristic equation is x square. So m to the power 4 plus 2m square plus 1 equal to 0. And what are the roots of this equation?
One of the roots, minus iota and iota.
Right, so it is m square plus 1 whole square, which means that one can write down a basis of the null space of the homogeneous equation, right? What is that in this case? Cosine x, sine x, and you will also have a cosine x sine x, because plus minus iota are the roots with multiplicity 2, correct? Is that okay with everybody present here?
Yeah, ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
So now
ma'am.
what should be your candidate solution for the non-homogeneous differential equation if you're applying the
X
method
square.
of
X
undetermined
square
x squared times what?
cosine x plus sine x.
Right? So ax, meaning
X square.
x square a sine x plus b cosine x, right?
Uh-huh.
Right? You need to
Yes.
sort of, you start with a sort of candidate solution like this, and you find the value of the coefficients a and b, right? So everybody agrees with me that this should be our candidate solution.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, great. So one applies this, one tries. So you substitute this in the given equation and find out what is A and B, right? So if these computations are correct, then A and B turned out to be 5/8 and 3/8 respectively. So this is a particular solution, and then one can write down the general solution, right? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. All right. Let's look at one more exercise using the method of undetermined coefficients. Again, an degree 4, order 4 differential equation. Okay. All right. So let's look at the characteristic polynomial associated to the homogeneous equation. In this case, it is x to power 4 minus x cube minus x square plus x. X is a factor. So that means that you can pull out x, you will left with the cubic, and it so turns out that that cubic is actually x minus 1 square times x plus 1. Right? So the roots are 0, -1, and 1 with multiplicity 2. Okay, so you look at the solution space of the homogeneous equation, and one can write down 4 linearly independent solutions of the homogeneous equation. In this case, it would be 1 corresponding to the operator d, e to power x corresponding to the operator d minus 1 square, x e to power x because 1 is a root with multiplicity 2, and e to power minus x corresponding to the operator d plus 1. Correct? Now, yeah, these are 4 linearly independent solutions. So they must form a basis of the solution space of the associated homogeneous equation. Now, having done this, what should be our candidate solution for the non-homogeneous solution? So what should be a candidate solution for the non-homogeneous equation as far as the method of undetermined coefficients is concerned, right?
You need to break it into yeah.
Right. So it would be a good idea to break it into separately polynomial, and let's take the x sin x part separate. So having x square plus 4 on the right suggests what? That we should look at
A quadratic polynomial.
a generic quadratic polynomial, right? Of the form ax square plus bx plus c, right?
Right.
But I also have 1 as a root of the, 1 as a solution of the, a constant is appearing here as the solution
Right.
of the homogeneous equation. So one should multiply all of this by the factor x. And one should rather look at x times ax square plus bx plus c. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Why we multiply by x?
Because there's a constant here, there's a constant which is a solution of the homogeneous equation.
Okay.
Basically,
So
we will lose on a variable basically.
yes, we will lose on a variable. When you apply L to this, you will lose on the variable C. You will lose on this information of C, because no matter what value of C you choose, L will also, L applied to this will be 0, right? So you multiply it by X, and so this is what we did. And what do we do? How do we take care of X sin X?
Ax sin x plus cos x.
Ax sin
Ax
X.
plus b. Ax plus b. Yes.
Okay. So why do we have a ax plus b here? X suggests I should have a generic linear polynomial, right? Degree 1 polynomial, which is alpha. So I'm writing it as, because a's and b's are already being used here. Alpha x plus beta and gamma x plus delta, right? There's no reason for these two coefficients to be same, right? So generic as far as possible, right? So do we need to modify this? Or this is okay?
This is okay, right?
Is that okay? Yes?
Yeah.
So
Ma'am,
yes.
why should not we have a alpha x square plus beta x plus gamma x?
Why should we not have alpha x square?
Yes, ma'am, because we already have x sine. No, no, my bad. Sorry.
Right? It's not here, right? That doesn't appear here. You only look at the solution of the
Yes,
homogeneous,
yes.
right?
Got it.
Okay. So our final candidate solution is this, and I'll sort of leave this for you to work out, right? What are the values of ABC, alpha, beta, gamma, delta? I'll just leave it for you to work.
Ma'am, can these questions come in exam, because they will at least take 5 to 10 minutes to compute all the coefficients?
Yes, everything can come in as exam. No, don't worry about it. Yes.
Man, this will take like 15 minutes total to solve.
Yeah.
Don't worry. No, don't worry. We will sort of set a reasonable question paper. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. But is this example okay with everybody?
Ma'am,
Yes.
instead of ax square plus bx plus c, उसको whole x से multiply करने की जगह पे बस ax square plus bx लिया तो क्या problem है?
See, we can't just take x square plus bx plus c. We have to account for a generic polynomial of degree 2. Because our solution is x square plus 4. Anytime you have a degree 2 polynomial, you start with this. You know, it may turn out that c is 0 or what, I don't know. But you start with something very general.
But if we only remove c, then it won't
You
work.
shorter variables, right? You need 3 variables here. That comes from some other things, but yeah, so just you should know that 3 variables are required.
See, the whole point of these examples are we are going to develop a more systematic approach to how to come up with a candidate solution. Just hang on for 2 minutes. How to come
And
up
also, ma'am,
Yes.
in place of alpha x plus beta, why can't we take only alpha x?
See, the same logic. Whenever I have a degree 1 polynomial, I will look at an honest degree 1 polynomial, right? So it may happen that beta is 0, but to start with, I will have a general constant here. Just wait. I'm we are going to discuss a more systematic approach to the method of undetermined coefficients. Maybe another slide. Yeah.
Ma'am, I had a question in the previous slide.
Yes, tell me.
Ma'am, how did we directly write the x cos x and x sin x part of the solution?
Here, because
Yes, ma'am.
Plus minus iota is a factor of is a root of the characteristic equation of degree of multiplicity 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and we discussed this, that what happens if you have repeated roots. This is coming from that.
That was for e to the power mx.
Even for this we discussed. Much the same works here also. It's exactly the same argument. See, having found one root, how do you find the other solution? There is a general method for that, which was discussed.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so that will lead you, if you follow that algorithm, that will lead you a factor of x. Yes. See, if you have any further questions on this, I would apologize. Maybe towards the end of the class, we can take it, right? Because this was sort of discussed long back.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's discuss one more solution. One more example. Okay. So again, using the method of undetermined coefficients, let's look at the homogeneous differential equation and let's write down the associated characteristic polynomial. So this is x to the power 4 minus 2x square plus 1, which is x minus 1 whole square times x plus 1 whole square, right? So the roots are 1 and minus 1, each with multiplicity 2. Correct? Okay. All right. So what is the basis of the solution space of the homogeneous equation?
Ma'am, we can say e to the power minus x, x e to the power minus x, e to the power x, and e to the power and x e to the power x.
Correct, right? So this is the basis of the solution of the homogeneous equation. And now we need to account for this when we look at candidate solutions for the non-homogeneous equation using the method of undetermined coefficients. Okay. All right. So how do we do this? Let's see. So let's go slowly. So what does e to the power x on the right suggest? What should be our candidate solution? What should be our candidate solution?
We can start off with ax square plus bx plus c times e power x.
See, why should we have a ax square plus bx plus c here? We only have an exponential on the right? So why should we have a quadratic polynomial?
No, I was talking for x square e power x.
Right. We'll discuss this, a little later. Yeah. What happens? Yeah, about e to power 2x. What will happen? We should start with
A
some
to the power
constant,
2x.
and that's all, right? That's fine, right? There's no modification required, because we only need to account for the solutions of the homogeneous equation. All right. And now x square e to power x initially suggests that one should look at a general quadratic of this form times e to power x. However, we note that e to power x and x e to power x are both solutions of the homogeneous equation. So we need to multiply this by x square, a factor x square. So the final candidate solution that we start off with should be a e to power 2x plus whatever we did here, right? X square times a generic quadratic times exponential x. Correct? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so
Yes,
one
ma'am.
has to get a trial solution involving the undetermined coefficients and then determine these coefficients, right? Okay, all right. Okay, so what we are going to discuss is now a more systematic approach to the method of undetermined coefficients. This can also be applied to order 2 equations. However, let's see. Yeah. So suppose that I have an nth order linear differential equation. Remember, the method of undetermined coefficients can be applied only if the associated homogeneous equation has constant coefficients and the forcing function R is a sum, is an exponential polynomial, sine, cosine, or sum and products of these, right? So that's a restriction that the method of undetermined coefficients has, right? Okay. Now, what are we going to call this method as? Method of annihilators. Okay. What is the basic assumption here? We are going to find another linear operator A. We are going to find another constant coefficient linear differential operator A such that R, which is the forcing function on the right, is in the null space of A. Okay. So we are going to say A is going to annihilate R, right? A applied on R, AR is 0, right? Okay. All right. All right. Now, so this method works on the basis that one is always able to find a linear or constant coefficient differential operator A such that R belongs to the null space of this operator A, right? Okay. All right. Now, what are we required to solve? We are required to find a particular solution of this initial, non-homogeneous differential equation. Yeah, need to find y satisfying Ly equal to Rx. So if I apply A both sides, what will I get? I will get A of Ly equal to, A of Ly equal to 0, right? So that means that any y which is a solution of the non-homogeneous differential equation Ly equal to Rx is also a solution of the homogeneous equation with constant coefficients given as ALy equal to 0. Is that okay?
No, there was some
Ma'am, can you come again? Can you come
Yes,
again?
ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So all I'm trying to say is, given a non-homogeneous differential equation of order n with constant coefficient, and the right-hand side, the forcing function being, either an exponential, polynomial, sines and cosines, or sum and product. Suppose that I am able to find a constant coefficient linear differential operator A such that R is in the null space of the operator A, yeah, which means that A applied to R is 0.
Then wouldn't R have to be some e raised to mx type?
R has to be, we are looking at the method of undetermined coefficient. So R is either an exponential or a sine cosine function or, a polynomial or, their combination.
How does a polynomial work? Isn't polynomial general solutions of Cauchy-Euler forms?
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Just wait. We'll see. We'll see some
Okay.
example. Just wait. Yeah, hang on.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's just run through, sort of what is the theory aspect of this method, and we'll see some examples. So suppose I'm able to find a constant coefficient linear differential operator A, which annihilates R. Yeah, that's the reason this is called an annihilator. What? So what is gained by finding this A? I am saying the following, that if Y is a particular solution of the non-homogeneous equation Ly equal to Rx, then Y is going to be a solution of the homogeneous equation with constant coefficients Ly equal to 0. Is that okay? Is everybody with me on
L
this?
is also
Yeah, ma'am.
constant coefficients.
L is constant coefficients, right? See,
Okay, so this
yeah.
isn't this a very specific kind of method?
See, what am I trying to say is, this is, you know one way, given L with constant coefficients and R, with exponential, polynomial, or sine, cosine, or their sum and product, or you know how to apply the method of undetermined coefficient, right? Now, what is this method of annihilators doing? The method of annihilators is going to tell you a systematic way of coming up with the candidate solution for the method of undetermined coefficients. That's all. This is not a new method.
Right.
Yes? Okay. All right. All right. So what is that we are trying to do? In order to look at the solutions of this equation ALY equal to 0, I'm going to look at the characteristic polynomial. Yeah. So let me sort of run through an example. I think some of your questions might be answered. So let's look at over here I have a polynomial on the right, and I'm going to apply the method that we just discussed, which means the method of annihilator method, which is indeed a sort of formal approach to the method of undetermined coefficients to find a particular solution. Right? I will not worry about the solution of the homogeneous equation here. I'm sure by now everybody knows how to find the solution of the homogeneous equation here. Okay, all right. So here, what is the linear differential equation associated to the linear operator associated to the above differential equation? This is D4 minus 16, right? Okay. All right. So that's the L in the notation that we have used. And R is in the null space of the operator D5. Everybody agrees here?
Okay,
Right?
right.
So
right,
there's a
right.
nice polynomial. There's no problem. There is also always going to be a constant coefficient linear differential operator that annihilates R. Okay. So I'm going to
Correct.
take A
But
as D to
there
power.
can be other differential equations also which might have this polynomial in their null space, but not necessarily constant coefficient ones.
But not necessary constant coefficient ones, right?
Okay, right. Got
Yes,
it. Got
but
it.
constant coefficients sort of simplify our life, right?
Correct.
So we will rather stick to that. Okay, so
That
let
is
me
nice.
just complete this example. Right? Now, what is gained by sort of introducing one more operator A? I am going to look at the following, right? So let's apply A to R. So which means I'm going to apply the operator D to power 5 to this polynomial, degree 4 polynomial. So R is being annihilated by A, right? So Y is a solution of Ly equal to Rx, and so we need to find Y, a particular solution of the non-homogeneous equation Ly equal to Rx. And any such Y is also going to be a solution of the constant coefficient differential equation ALY equal to 0, right? Which in this case is the operator D to power 5 applied later, and first D to power 4 minus 16. In any case, the order doesn't matter because we are dealing with constant coefficient
Constant
terms here,
coefficient.
right? So is this okay? Now, what is that I'm going to
Yes,
do?
ma'am.
I'm going to solve this homogeneous equation first. Okay. Now, let's see. Now, let's write down the associated characteristic polynomial here. Okay. So, which is what? It's going to be n to power 5 times n to power 4 minus 16, right? Let's factorize it. So, what are the roots? 0 with multiplicity 5, 2, minus 2, and plus minus 2 iota. Correct? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Now, what am I going to do? Right. So let me write down the general solution of the homogeneous equation ALY equal to 0. So what is going to be the general solution? The general solution is going to be So, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these, up till x to power 4, these come from the operator d to power 5, right? And then exponential 2x comes from the operator d minus 2. And exponential minus 2x comes from the operator d plus 2. And this one comes from d square plus 4. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes. So having solved the homogeneous equation ALY equal to 0, remember what are we required to do? We are required to find a particular solution of the non-homogeneous equation Ly equal to Rx. R in this case was this polynomial. Now we all agreed that every particular solution of this equation is indeed a solution of the homogeneous equation ALY equal to 0. Now, what
Okay.
have I found? I have found the general solution of the homogeneous equation. So I'm going to plug that in here and solve for C1, C2 up to Cn9, right?
Right. 9
Okay.
coefficients.
Right. So instead of that, all I'm trying to say is I am going to only look for solutions of the form C1 plus C2x plus 33x square plus C4x cube plus C5x to power 4. And I am going to say, I am going to disregard C6, C7, C8 and C9. Why is that?
Because
that is the
they-
solution
Because
of
ma'am, in
homogeneous.
LY we don't have
yeah, while
these
We have
differentiating,
that.
you can't
We
get
already
those
have
terms.
that.
Because these are actually the solutions of the homogeneous equation Ly equal to 0. So no matter what constant I choose, they are always going to be annihilated by the operator L. So I can take C6, C7, C8, C9 to be arbitrary. In particular, I can take C6, C7, C8, C9 to be 0. Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So my candidate solution is this. And now this is the candidate solution for the method of undetermined coefficients. Is that okay?
Rather than guessing, now we've just made it structured.
Yes. So there is a structure, formal way of guessing the solution. Yes. Okay. All right. So now let's just, follow the calculation. So you sort of plug this in the differential equation and find out what are C1, C2, C3, C4, C5 which satisfy this differential equation. Is that okay? Yeah, now it's all computations. So everybody with me? Up till now?
Yeah.
Yes?
yes ma'am.
Okay, all right, excellent. Yeah, so, rest of it is all computation. So I will sort of skip that. Any mistakes, please point it out to me. Feel free to send me an email. Okay, all right. So I will sort of skip this computation part. Let's see, one more example using this method. Okay. Okay, so let's write down the associated homogeneous differential equation, which is d square minus 5d plus 6y equal to 0. So the associated characteristic polynomial is a degree 2 polynomial, roots being 2 and 3, right? So which means that two linearly independent solutions of the associated homogeneous equation are exponential 2x and exponential 3x, right? Okay. And so the null space is going to be null space of the operator L is exponential 2x and exponential 3x, and R here is x times exponential x, right? So I need to find a constant coefficient operator A which annihilates R. Yeah, a constant coefficient linear differential operates A such that R is in the null space of A. So what should be my operator A?
D minus 1 square.
It should be d minus 1 square, right? So this is suggested by R, right? Okay. So having found A, I am going to look at AL, yeah, the operator AL, right? And remember, if Y is a particular solution of the non-homogeneous equation, then Y satisfies the homogeneous equation ALY equal to 0. So let's look at the operator AL. The operator AL in this example is given as d minus 1 square, d minus 2, d minus 3. And the characteristic polynomial is, readable from here, x minus 1 square, x minus 2, x minus 3. The roots are 1 with multiplicity 2, 2 and 3. And you can write down linearly independent solutions, right? X, e to power x, exponential 2x and exponential 3x, right? So which means that the general solution of the homogeneous equation ALY equal to 0 is given as a linear span of these four functions, which is a exponential x plus bx exponential x plus c exponential 2x plus d exponential 3x, correct? And now we need to find each of these, right? A, B, C, D, R, such that L applied to this is the function R, which in this example is x times exponential x, right? Okay. And now what should we do? Now we remember that L actually applied to exponential 2x and exponential 3x is 0, right? Exponential 2x and exponential 3x actually form a basis of the solution space of the operator Ly equal to 0. So we may choose C and D to be 0. No matter what values of C and D we choose, they are going to be annihilated by the operator L, right? So we may as well choose them to be 0. That is going to be simplify our calculations. So what is required is we need to start with the candidate solution a exponential x plus b times x exponential x. All right. And that's it. Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, and rest of it is all calculation, right? Right. You start. Yes.
So basically what we are doing is the choice of the candidate function would be just the linear combination of the solutions of just the annihilator, right? Like, because we are anyway going to ignore the homogeneous contribution, because that will anyway lead to 0 in some sense.
See, so what is one required to do? You look at the equation ALY equal to 0. You sort of write down the general solution of ALY equal to 0 and eliminate from the general solution found the terms that appear on the solution of Ly equal to 0. So these may not be the same as the solution of the annihilator. These are two different things. Eliminate from the solution of ALY equal to 0 the terms that appear in the solution of Ly equal to 0. Correct?
But those will already be the terms we are solving in the beginning, right? Like when we do solve for the...
Right, but there might be some repetitions, no?
Okay, so we should also just ignore them.
So you ignore the terms which are the solution. That's what we are doing here, right? For example, you look at
Like
this.
till now we haven't
Right?
gotten any duplication. That's why it feels like
Right.
okay.
See here, you know, we are choosing C and D to be 0 because they are actually appear in the solution for Ly equal to 0. That's the only reason.
Okay.
Correct? Yes.
Yes.
And that's the method of sort of the annihilator. Yeah. So and the remaining term constitute the correct form of the candidate solution. Or the candidate solution or the particular solution of the non-homogeneous differential equation. Okay, right? So, having found a trial solution, rest of it is all calculation. You substitute that here and you figure out what are the values of A and B that work, right? So this is just computation. Okay. So suppose, let's just run through this. Let's suppose that if the forcing function on the right is x to power m minus 1. So what is the constant coefficient linear differential operator A you can think of that would sort of annihilate our dm, correct? And what if we had an exponential ax, then what should
D
be
minus A.
D minus A, operator D minus A would do the job, right? And what if I had x to power m minus 1 exponential ax?
D minus A power m.
To the power m, right? Okay, all right, excellent. If we had a cosine or the sine function, then?
D square minus B.
See, if you have a D square minus B, what will that give you?
D square minus B
D square
square.
plus B.
Sorry?
D square plus B square.
D square plus B square, correct? Yeah, not D square minus B. Okay. And if you had exponential AX cosine BX, or likewise exponential AX sine BX, then what should be the choice for the constant coefficient linear differential operator A which annihilates R?
E minus A into D square plus B square.
if you put a d minus a, that
D
will give
square
you a real
minus-
solution, right? These are coming from complex roots a plus iota b, a minus iota b, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So you should look at an equation d minus a plus iota b, d plus a plus iota b, which is exactly d square minus 2ad plus a square plus b square. Is that okay? Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Yes. And one last thing, what if I also had a factor of x to power m minus 1 sticking around? Then
Whole
what
power
should
m.
it-
Whole power
all
m.
of it to the power n. Correct? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody with me up till this point?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
basically, we'll have to just, we can directly use these annihilated results, right?
There's no result here, this just by inspection, right? This is what we have done,
Right.
right? There's no result here, right? Right? Yes? Is that
Fair enough.
okay? Yeah. There's no result here, right? Okay, all right.
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
ma'am, the third case,
Yes.
like, how did we, just for general curiosity, how
Huh.
did we like prove that for d minus a to the power n, one solution we know a to the power ax.
Yes.
How do we come to know? Because we only know till x to the power ax. So,
See, let's take m to be 2 and find out d minus a square. Take m to be 2 and find out the solution of d minus a square equal to 0. So how do you do it? One solution exponential ax. Once you know one solution, how do you find another solution? We discussed a method, right, which said that you look for another solution of the form v times f, where f is a given solution. And if you do the computation, v will turn out to be x.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, we discussed this. You remember that?
Yes, ma'am. How do we go beyond this?
Again, apply the same method. Apply the same method one more time.
But for that, we would require a 2-degree equation. So
Yeah.
the
So let
2-degree
me take
equation.
this question towards the end. Yeah, let me take this question towards the end. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. All right. All right. So this is much the same. If I replace cosine by sine, not much changes. Okay. All right. I would sort of urge all of you, we discussed 3 examples today using the method of undetermined coefficient. Please try the annihilator method to try, to formalize and come up with the candidate solution using the annihilator method. Please try that. Okay. All right. You remember we did one more method to solve particular solutions of non-homogeneous differential equation.
Variation of parameter.
Yeah, when we were discussing order 2 case, that was the variation of parameters. This is far more general than the method of undetermined coefficients. So let's sort of see if we can push through this method to order n equations as well, right? So over here, P1, P2, Pn can be functions of the variable x, and R need not be just the exponential or the polynomial or sine, cosine or their combination. R is any arbitrary function. As long as R is continuous on the interval I, this method would work. Yeah, same for P1, P2, Pn. They're all continuous on the interval I. That's all this method demands. Right? Okay, for n equal to 2 case, what did we do? We wrote down the solution of the general solution of the associated homogeneous equation, and we replaced the constant there by functions v1 and v2, right? So we sought a particular solution of the non-homogeneous equation of the form v1 times y1 plus v2 times y2, where v1 v2 are both functions of x this time, right? And we also imposed a condition, right? What is the other condition that we imposed? The other condition that we imposed was that the derivative of v1 times y1 plus the derivative of v2 times y2 is 0, right? So with these two conditions, we were able to solve for derivatives of v1 and derivative of y2, derivative of v2, and then integrate and solve. Correct? Is that okay? Everybody remembers the method of variation of parameter for order 2 equations? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So, so this is what we did for order 2 case. And let's see how much of this we can push in order when we were dealing in order n equation. So the general idea is much the same. So we will say that we will look at the associated homogeneous equation, and we will write down the basis of solutions of the associated homogeneous equation. So suppose that y1, y2, yn are n linearly independent solutions of the associated homogeneous equation, which means that there are some constants c1, c2, cn, such that any solution of the homogeneous equation can be written as c1 y1 plus c2 y2 and cn yn. Right? Now, what do? We seek a solution of the form v1 y1 v2 y2 plus vn yn of the non-homogeneous equation. Now v1 v2 vn are functions of x, right? And so to begin with, we demand v1 v2 vn continuous on I, such that yp as written on this slide here is a solution of the non-homogeneous equation, differential equation, right? Is that okay? So we have so far only one condition. We have n unknown functions v1, v2, vn. So we need to impose n independent conditions, right? So we are going to impose these conditions in a manner that formulae become easy to sort of compute, right? Okay. So how are we going to assume these conditions? We already have one. What is the first condition? That yp as written on this slide here, v1 y1 plus v2 y2 plus vn yn is a solution of the non-homogeneous equation. Okay. All right. Let's see. So if we compare notes with order 2 situation, then this is what we are doing, right? The basis of solutions y1, y2, yn of the associated homogeneous equation, and we are to find n unknown functions v1, v2, vn. Okay, so let's differentiate this solution once. And what would we get? We would get terms involving the derivatives of v1 up to vn, right? I am going to assume that we are going to impose this condition that the derivative of v1 times y1 plus all the way derivative of vn times yn is going to be 0, right? So I'm going to impose the condition that suppress the terms that lead to higher order derivatives of v1, v2, vn. Is that okay?
So we can do this till n minus 1th derivative.
We are
Same
going to
condition,
do
0,
this
0,
till
0,
n
0.
minus 1. Yeah, so let's see. So at the stage 2, when I'm differentiating twice, so this term, so this term is going to contribute derivatives of, right? So I'm going to sort of suppress this term, right? So I'm going to demand that derivative of v1 times derivative of y1 plus derivative of v1 times derivative of yn is going to 0. Is that okay? Again, I will repeat
Yes.
this. I'm going to impose conditions that suppress the terms that lead to higher derivatives of v1, v2, vn. Yeah? So if you look sort of carefully, we are going to differentiate as though, v1, v2, vn were just sort of scalars. We're differentiating as though.
Yes.
Right? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. And we are going to do this till stage n minus 1, right? So if you do the differentiate n minus 1 times, I'm going to demand that the first derivative of v1 times the n minus 2th derivative of y1 all the way till the first derivative of vn times n minus 2th derivative of yn equal to 0, right? So now I have n minus 1 conditions, right? On v1, v2, vn, right? Is that okay?
Yes, and then the last condition will be from R equal to R of X.
Right. So the last condition is going to be obtained by substituting this in the given differential equation, right? So I'm
Yes.
going to use y1, y2, yn are the solutions of the homogeneous equation. And if you substitute this information in the non-homogeneous equation, in order 2 case, we had gotten this. In order n case, you would get the following, right? So the derivative of v1 times n minus 1th derivative of y1 plus the derivative of v1 times n minus 1th derivative of y2 all the way till first derivative of vn times n minus 1 derivative of yn is equal to r, right? So, let's just look at it in this way. So, ultimately, what did we do in order 2 case? We solved this system of equations for the derivative of v1 and v2 and integrated to find v1 and v2, right?
Yes,
In the
this is just extrapolated to n order.
Correct. So in the current situation, this takes the following form. So instead of just having the first derivatives, I will go on till order n minus 1 and I will get the following system of equations. The conditions that we imposed on the derivatives of v1, v2, vn are exactly going to give us the following, equations which I've just written in matrix format for convenience. See, what is it, what is this? So these are, the conditions on, so these conditions lead to, repeat, these conditions lead to simple formulae for the first n minus 1 derivatives of the candidate solution yp, right? And what was this yp? Yp was v1 y1, v2 y2. I'll just write that down. Maybe that will help. So all of this helps me to differentiate. Yeah. So our candidate solution was this. So this is my candidate solution. So remember, v1 was function here. Yeah. So v1 y1, v2 y2, vn yn, right? Where y1, y2, yn are the solutions of the associated homogeneous equation, right? And imposing these conditions allow us to differentiate this candidate solution in the following format. I can write down the rth derivative of the candidate solution as v1 times y1r, the r derivative this, plus vn x yn r x, right? And this is true for each r. Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so we need to find an unknown function v1, v2, vn, and I am imposing the conditions so as to differentiate, so as to get simple formulae for the n minus 1 first n minus 1 derivatives of this candidate solution. Correct? Okay. Now let me go back to the slide. Okay. The point to note here is that the system of equations that I have written here admits a solution. Correct? Why is that the case? Why can I always solve for the, why is there is always a solution of, v1 prime, v2 prime, vn prime? These are the unknowns, right?
Equations are
Because
the homogeneous solutions are linearly independent, so Wronskian is non-zero, so it is
Right.
invertible.
Correct.
The matrix is invertible.
Right. So you have to note that this matrix here is precisely the Wronskian of y1, y2, yn, which being linearly independent solutions of the homogeneous equation, the Wronskian is going to be non-zero everywhere, and hence one can solve using the Kramer's rule for the derivatives of v1, v2, vn. And once you are able to solve for the derivatives, one should be able to integrate and solve for v1, v2, vn, right? So let's just do this exercise. So if I denote the Wronskian matrix by W, so this system of equation tells me that the derivative, the first derivative of Vk is going to be the following. So what do I have upstairs? So I'm writing it as Wk. What is Wk? Wk is the determinant obtained by obtained from the Wronskian matrix by replacing by kth column by the column 0, 0 Rx. Correct? Is that okay? I'll say that
Yes,
one more
ma'am.
time. Wk is the determinant obtained from the Wronskian matrix by replacing the kth column in the Wronskian matrix by the column 0, 0 Rx. Correct? Is that okay? And
Yes,
having
ma'am.
found the first derivatives of v1, v2, vn, you just integrate to get v1, v2, vn. You can sort of ignore the constants of integration captured because anyways we are we are looking for one particular solution,
Particular solution.
right?
Yes.
And this gives us a particular solution of the non-homogeneous differential equation, right? Is that okay?
But it is very tedious.
It so seems.
It
It
will
so
take
seems.
days.
No, it will not. Let's see an example. But is this okay? The general strategy, is that okay? Everybody with me up till this
Yeah, I
point?
mean,
Yeah. Let's see.
the strategy is काफी nice, but
Let's see.
the
Yeah.
execution is going to be
Let's see. Let's see a simple example. Okay. So let's write down the
3
characteristic.
degrees fine.
Yeah.
3
So over
degrees fine.
right. Let me complete this. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the homogeneous. Let's look at the associated homogeneous equation because I need to find out y1, y2, y3, right? So the characteristic polynomial is x cube minus x square minus x plus 1. The roots are -1 and 1 with multiplicity 2. A basis of the solution space is going to be given as e to power minus x, e to power x, x exponential x. Correct? So
Right.
I need to look for solutions of the form v1 times exponential x, v2 times x exponential x, v3 times x exponential minus x, right? So I need to solve unknowns v1, v2, v3. Okay. So before that, let me calculate the Wronskian. So I'm going to use the Abel's formula to simplify my life. And I'm going to say that the Wronskian at the point x is going to be Wronskian at evaluated at any fixed point times this function, right? And what is P1 here in this example? P1 is the coefficient of the term which involves the derivatives of y to n minus 1th derivative, right? So in this case, P1 is minus of 1. And what is Wronskian at the point 0? So let me write it as it
Wronskian
is.
at the point 0.
Let's just write it as this. Okay?
1, 1,
Yeah.
1.
So everybody agrees
0,
that
1.
P1 in this example is -1. So I will have exponential x, right? Let's just compute the Wronskian. So the Wronskian in this example is, you have y1, y2, y3. The second term will have second row will have the first derivative of y1, the first derivative of y2, the first derivative of y3, and the third row will have the second derivative of y1, the second derivative of y2, and the second derivative of y3. So if you plug this in, evaluate it at x equal to 0, then this is going to turn out to be 4. So the Abel's formula will tell me that the Wronskian is 4 times exponential x. Is this okay?
Right.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, that makes sense.
Now, if you remember the notation, what is W1? I'm going to look at the Wronskian matrix, replace the first column by the column vector 0, 0, Rx, right? Which means that
Yes.
in this case, it's going to be this. W2, it's similar computation. You replace the second column in the Wronskian matrix by 0, 0, Rx. And if my calculation is correct, then W3 turns out to be this. So, what was, so this is y1, this is y2, and this is y3. This is, integral of v1. Yeah, so this is v1. V1 is what? V1 is a certain integral. V1 is, so this is W1 here in the denominator. In the numerator, this is W1 here, this is W2 here, and this is W3 here. And the denominator is the Wronskian everywhere. Yeah. So it's actually not too bad. It seems like there's a lot going on, but thanks to Abel's formula, it's not too bad. Is that okay? Is this
Yes, I
example?
mean,
Yeah.
it gets better, I think, with
With n equal to
Right.
5, n equal to 6. Sure.
Sorry.
Ma'am, if we have something that is like n equal to 4 or n equal to 5, this would take forever, right? Like,
Yeah, this would take like eternities, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
It depends, what are the solutions of the homogeneous equation. See, the Wronskian is all it revolves is you have to differentiate here. So it depends on what y1, y2, y3 are. I think the meat of the calculation is there, right? It's not too bad, meaning you should be glad that you're able to solve a non-homogeneous differential equation. See,
Yeah,
look at the
correct.
generality of the
Right.
method. All you require is the only condition that you require is that certain coefficients are continuous, and that's all, right? That's all, and you're able to find
Yeah,
the
like yeah,
solution.
if we write a code for this, then we will get it like 5-10 minutes.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, the code should be able to do this very quickly.
Okay. All right. So I think I've been able to convince you that this method of derivation of parameters works. So that's why, the method of indeterminate coefficients is much faster, but it has its own restrictions. Doesn't work all the time. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Is this bit okay? Whatever we discussed today? The method of undetermined coefficients, a systematic approach to the method of undetermined coefficient, that's the method of annihilator, and the method of variation of parameters.
Yeah, it works.
Okay, all right. Okay, all of you don't sound to be too happy about it, but that's how life is. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, all right. So, so I'm going to sort of shift gears now. So we have been dealing with linear differential equations. We are now going to sort of talk about an altogether different method of solving differential equations, which is called as the method using Laplace transforms, right? So in order to develop this method, you need to sort of develop some vocabulary, right? So we will sort of quickly see some definitions, the concept of improper integrals and things like that. So in fact, I was planning that maybe I will put these slides up on Moodle, and I would request all of you to read them on your own. And any questions, sort of we can take them up in the discussion session. Because there's not much to hear. All you need to do is sort of keep track of some definitions. But let me sort of do some basics at least so that you can get started. So the very basic definition is, what do we mean by a piecewise continuous function? Yeah. So just to set the record straight, a function. So I'm looking at a function which is defined on closed interval AB. Yeah. And this is a real valued function. We say that this is continuous provided there is a partition of this interval AB, which means that there are finite set of points T1, T2, Tn minus 1 in this interval AB, such that what happens? Such that f is continuous on each of these subintervals Ti minus 1 Ti. And what is part 2 saying? So the right hand limit of f and the left hand limit exist for some I. Okay. And okay. So what is this saying? 1 and 2 are sort of a method of putting this analytically, that what f is piecewise continuous on the interval AB if it is continuous there, except for a finite number of jump discontinuities, right? So what is property 2 saying? Property 2 says that f approaches a finite limit at the endpoints of each subinterval Ti minus 1 Ti from within the subinterval. Okay, so let me sort of draw this.
Right.
Yeah, what does a function like this look like?
But n needs to be finite. That is forgiven?
Yes, partition means this is a finite. Yeah. Yeah. So, so something like this, right? So suppose this is my point A, this is my point B. So this is Tn, this is T0, this is T1, this is T2, this is Tn minus 1, right? So I can have something like this, yeah. So let me put it here at A, and then I can put it like this on the piece T1, T2, and let's say, yeah, over here I define it to be this, and then let's say I go like this. Yes, just an example of a piecewise continuous function. Yeah, I repeat again. Let me just go back to the slide. So F, what is point number 2 saying? Yeah, I think 1 is crystal clear. Point number 2 says that F approaches a finite limit at as the endpoints of each subinterval are approached from within the subinterval. So if you look at the subinterval t minus 1 ti, and I am going to approach the endpoints ti from within the subinterval, which means that I would look at the left hand limit of f as t tends to ti from the left, and I'm going to look at the right hand limit of t as f tends to what am I saying? So I am going to look at the right hand limit of f as f tends to as t tends to ti minus 1, right? F approaches a finite limit at as the endpoints of each subinterval are approached from within the subinterval. Yes. Yeah. So is this okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So it's continuous.
Ma'am, can you give one example in which it is not a piecewise continuous? So maybe it will be more clear for me.
Okay.
Dirichlet function.
Sorry.
I said Dirichlet's function, 0 when rational and 1 when irrational.
Yeah. So the limit doesn't even exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is not.
That's all. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Okay. I'll add, right.
Ma'am, any continuous function on whole interval AB is a piecewise continuous.
Sure. That is piecewise continuous, So
Yes.
T0 is A, yeah. So right. See, why are we sort of looking at piecewise continuous functions? Because we want to integrate, right? So this is sort of so if we start with a piecewise continuous function, then they are known to be integrable. So this is that's the only reason we are looking at that. And why do we worry about integral suddenly? I will sort of be able to convince you when we look at sort of the definition of Laplace transform, and more than that, when we are sort of able to solve differential equations using Laplace transforms, as to why are we suddenly bothered about all of these things. Okay. So let's see. So suppose that, what are the advantages of piecewise continuous functions, and how far sort of we can push through the properties, the nice properties of continuous functions to piecewise continuous functions. So suppose that I have a function defined on closed A to, open infinity. So the function is defined to the right of A. This is a real valued function. Suppose f is such that f is piecewise continuous on the interval AB for every b bigger than a, right? Suppose this is the case, right? Then this is the definition. Then we say that f is piecewise continuous on the interval a to infinity, right? Okay. The nice thing about piecewise continuous functions is that...
Ma'am, your volume has gone really low.
Okay, I just dropped this. So now is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So the nice thing about piecewise continuous functions are that every piecewise continuous function is bounded on the interval AB. Yeah. So please think about it. Why should this be the case? If you think for 2 minutes, you should get it. Okay. Now, why am I suddenly interested in piecewise continuous functions? Is the point here, right? For piecewise continuous functions, the usual integral, the usual Riemann integral exists, right? We don't have to worry about integrality, right? Now, suddenly it is of concern that how do we define an integral of the form, right? So if I have an integral of the form a to b, then, right, and we have a piecewise continuous function f defined on the interval a b, then this is fine, right? How do we make sense of the integral from a to infinity, right? And I'll show you one more thing, right? And for example, how do you And once you have defined this, how do you define an integral from minus infinity to infinity, right? So things like this. So maybe I'll just stop right here and take your questions. Stop share. Let me just stop the recording.